And I would even say we want to see our churches grow. You mentioned earlier, I think 212 people have gone out from Mercy Hill. 71 of those have been international.
Okay.
And to think about the reach, though, think about growth. Like to think about the reach of all of our church plants, all of our people sent internationally, people who have heard, disciples that have been made, churches that have been planted amongst them. I mean, we don't see that growth here, necessarily Mercy Hill, but just the expanse of that is pretty incredible.
It's easier for us to see it in the 140 that are domestic church plants, right?
Yeah.
Because that 140, I can say, guys, we sent 140, but now at Easter, among all of our church plants, the cumulative attendance was over 1,000.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, dude, we're talking about for every one we send, 5 are coming. But it's actually, I don't know, man. You would know better than me. I mean, it may even be a greater ratio than that for those 70 that go out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. So at Easter at Mercy Hill, saw the Spirit pour out in major ways. You might have the exact number. I think we saw close to 170 baptisms. Mm-hmm. Well, in this one state, in the specific place in South Asia, I'm not going to mention names here, but one of our units there saw 250 people get baptized. So that's growth.
Right.
That's kingdom growth, and
awesome.
We don't maybe think about that if you're sitting here as, a lead pastor. Obviously, you want to grow your church, but thinking about the sending power of that.
Yeah.
And we don't see that unless he's sent out from our church, him and his family.
This is Breaking Barriers, where we help pastors and churches grow so that they can go.
Hey guys, welcome to the Breaking Barriers podcast. My name is Pastor Andrew Hopper, and I am joined today with our awesome missions pastor, Landon, a dude who I have watched, honestly, in a lot of ways in ministry, watched grow up and been really excited to have you on our church planning launch team. You guys, you and your wife, although y'all weren't together at the time, were part of the 10 graduating college students that moved with us to plant Mercy Hill. And did a ton of mission early on, just vocationally with teaching school, but then was working hard in the ministry, then went to be a missionary, and now is back leading our mission arm of the church. So, Landon, we're excited to have you here. By God's grace, in 2024, we sent more missionary units through the International Mission Board than any other church in the Southern Baptist Convention, although we are not nearly the largest church. And we want to talk about that because it doesn't happen for no reason. There's a lot of intentionality behind that. Landon, we're going to get in today, and I really want to hear from you most of the time. I just want to set this stuff up. We're going to get into the topic of mission mobilization today, and just this idea of how we go from growing to going. All right, the big thing on our podcast is there are churches that grow without going, but there are not churches really that go consistently without growing. Now, a lot of times we're talking about church planning teams, and that's where some of the masses are. We've sent over 200 missionaries at Mercy Hill. The majority of them, probably even, not quite, maybe 2/3 of them or so are with church planning teams. It's a little bit easier to lift. A lot of them, though, are international workers in some of the hardest places, among the most unreached. Today, that's our focus. I would love for the audience to just hear your heart for the unreached, for the lost. It's a heart that carried you to Oman. It's a heart that brought you back here to mobilize. You're doing a great job with that. Let's just give us your best John Piper right now.
Let's do it. Yeah, so I'll just kind of take you back to the beginning. I was in grad school at NC State and really wrestling the summer before with what I believed. I would have said I was not a Christian, but really, like, the Lord was doing something in my heart. Get up there to NC State, immediately find a really good community and jump into the Summit Church. And I just remember vividly getting saved over the fall semester there and just weeping, leaving. And then 2 weeks later, John Piper preaches just the Summit Sent weekend and leaving.
It really was John Piper.
It was. It really was.
What is that?
Just once again, just weeping. And it was just this thought of like this gospel that had just saved me, 2 weeks prior, was just so good and so rich. And the fact that, 3.2 billion people in the world didn't have access to that. And just God's glory wrapped up in that. And God's glory deserves and demands the praise of all 17,000 people groups on this earth. And the fact that right now as we speak, 7,100 of those, they don't have access to this gospel. Like I said, that saved my life and that I was staking my life on. And it just shaped how I thought. And I don't know if you remember this, Andrew, but I remember you were probably 28 years old getting ready to plant Mercy Hill, and this would have been maybe 18 months later. But sitting down with you and Bobby and just being like, hey, like, I don't know what the Lord's doing in my life, but I really do see myself living among the nations and mobilizing people to go to the nations. And yeah, I mean, my life has taken a lot of turns. I did come up here, as you said, met my now wife, which was awesome. She was graduating from Carolina at the time. And about a year into the Mercy Hill launch team, we ended up getting married. Andrew, you married us. It was awesome at our old space. And yeah, and we walked the journey to the field. It was probably 6 years after we got married. We landed in Muscat, Oman, there in the Middle East. And yeah, the Lord just really grew my heart. One of the most unreached, unengaged peoples in all of the world. 14 million people in this people group. And, as we speak right now, there's about 100 known believers. So really just engaging them with language and culture and ultimately the gospel. The Lord's just continued to allow my heart to swell for peoples who have never heard. And then landing back here in my role has just been just incredible. And especially being at a church that, we want to send, but we want to send those that are really equipped to go to the nations.
That's right. Yeah.
So
now you and your wife both were collegiate athletes, but which one of you guys was Division I?
I knew that was going to come up. That would be my wife. So,
I think that was literally part of the intro of y'all's marriage ceremony when I did your.
I hear that joke, about every 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey man, so yes, had a chance to come and visit you guys where you were. Y'all had a great work there. Man, highly evangelistic, very driven. And I know it was not an easy decision even to come back, but you guys did 3 years, and now you're having a chance to mobilize, and who knows what God's going to do in the future. But as part of that mobilization, one thing that we would like to do today is help churches build out, in their mind's eye at least, a plan for getting people to the nations. One of the things I think that we have tried very hard in this podcast to do is to talk about getting churches growing again. Man, I just have lived in this world of decline my entire ministry life, not in the local churches that we were in. You and I were both blessed to be a part of a church called the Summit Church in Raleigh-Durham, under the incredible leadership of my friend and pastor, J.D. Greer. The church has seen tremendous growth, and they have modeled this idea of that growth should translate into sending, that sending is sort of our highest goal, and we have really fallen into that, right in that pattern. We want that to be the case. But a lot of churches are in decline. They're not growing, and they need to have more of the growing discussion, because if they're not reaching people where they are, they're probably not going to send people out that can reach people in other places, right? But when churches begin to grow, and even before they begin to grow, they need to have a vision for this. But there comes a time where the other side of that coin is, are we being faithful to send? We say a lot of times sending capacity is greater than seating capacity, which I believe. Now, for sending capacity, seating capacity is, there's nothing more important than that. And we say that a lot at Mercy Hill, a lot on Breaking Barriers podcast. So you can't divorce them. You got to, the seating and the sending go together. But I think sometimes people feel like as intentional as they are to get the church growing, the sending is going to happen organically. And that's what we found to be not true. Like there needs to be just as much of an intentionality around getting people equipped to go as there is getting the church to grow. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And even as you were talking, it is seating capacity that feeds and fuels that sending capacity. So I think we should leverage just as much to both. And yeah, I don't think there's a day that goes by in my life I'm not thinking about our pipeline, and I'll share a lot of that here in a minute. I really think about it like a funnel, but we're constantly every missions team meeting we have, like we're constantly hammering out the pipeline. We've changed the pipeline, we have adapted the pipeline. So yeah, what they're going to do is extremely hard. They're going to really hard places, new culture, new language. Everything's going to be new. Ton of sacrificing going. And we better have our ducks in a row on this side of things too, as we equip them and make sure when they land, they're ready to rock.
Right.
And we've seen the fruit of that, which is incredible. The Lord's hand is all over that, and we're thankful for a lot of people that want to go, but we're also thankful for a pipeline that we have that we can walk people through step by step as they keep taking another step towards the nations.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
And I feel like on this podcast, a lot of times I think the excitement around it, and man, this is a very niche podcast. You're talking to pastors of churches that want to grow, which is not every church, right? So you have, it's a niche kind of thing. But in our world that we're doing this podcast for, a lot of the feedback we get is around guys who are getting courage around growth. Man, we're going to go to 2 services. We want to, we want to make sure we expand our seating capacity. What does it look like to, to try to have a good assimilation strategy? Like that's the stuff we're talking about a lot. That's what people are getting excited about. But if you don't have that much intentionality and building out around the sending side, then you're sort of just missing. You're sort of just missing on the growth side instead of the sending side. And so we just really want to encourage people. Like, are you putting the intentional effort into building out that other side of it? Because what a lot of churches do, I'm just going to say the thing that we, one of the things we try to do on this podcast is say out loud the thing everybody's thinking. For many churches, someone's called to missions. Great, that's why we have a mission board. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, just, hey, we're called, like, a lot of times we don't understand the connection between the raising up and the care of someone that goes out because we have a mission board. Predominantly for us, that's the IMB, who are great, which we're excited about. We have other mission boards that do it well. But a lot of churches have this mentality of like, well, yeah, the mission board does that part. We just are doing the growth part. But we've tried to really fight against that.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, in a major way, because, the mission board, the application process is, it's tough, it's arduous, it should be, right? It should be for what they're going to do. But we have such an opportunity on this side of things, and we're their sending church. We're the ones that spend, 98% of the time with them. The IMB is going to have a 7-week training for them. Christar is going to have a 7-week training for them. That's 7 weeks in probably 2 years that we get to have have them right with us. We get to equip them. We get to walk with them. We get to struggle with them. We get to, praise God, when things go well for them.
Right.
We get to do all that life with them to prepare them to when they go. And I would even say, you said something else like, we want to see our churches grow. But to think about, like, you mentioned earlier, I think 212 people have gone out from Mercy Hill. In staff meeting today, 71 of those have been international. Okay. And to think about the reach, though, think about growth. Like to think about the reach of all of our church plants, all of our people sent internationally, people who have heard, disciples that have been made, churches that have been planting amongst them. Yeah. Like that. I mean, we don't see that growth here, necessarily Mercy Hill, but just the expanse of that is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's easy to see it. It's easier for us to see it in the 140 that are domestic church plants, right? Yep. Because that 140, I can say, guys, we sent 140, but now at Easter this past week, among all of our church plants, the cumulative attendance was over 1,000. Yep. So it's like, hey, dude, we're talking about for every one we send, 5 are coming, right? But it's actually, I don't know, man. You would know better than me. I mean, it may even be a greater ratio than that for those 70 that go out. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. So at Easter at Mercy Hill, saw the Spirit pour out in major ways. You might have the exact number. I think we saw close to 170 baptisms. Well, in this one state, in the specific place in South Asia, I'm not going to mention names here, but one of our units there saw 250 people get baptized. So that's growth. Right. That's kingdom growth, and awesome. We don't maybe think about that if you're sitting here as, a lead pastor. Obviously, you want to grow your church, but thinking about the sending power of that. Yeah. And we don't see that unless he's sent out from our church, him and his family. Now, a lot of people believe that churches like a Mercy Hill or guys that are listening to this podcast, because, Mercy Hill's a big church. I get that. I mean, relatively. But like there's other churches that listen to this, might be 200 people, 300 people, 100 people, but they're growth minded Like, man, they're into pragmatism, they're growth minded, they want to see baptism, they set goals. And what's funny to me is the stereotype of that church is that they want to take shortcuts to get results, right? But what's crazy is, you just said it in passing, I want to unpack this. Our process to get somebody to the field is 2 years before they hit the IMB. So, and what's funny about Mercy Hill, and I think can be true of a lot of these churches that are branded as like a shortcut church, you actually get underneath their systems. It's a very high challenge environment. We have committed, like right now, our church is committed to multiply, not to partner. And so this is talking about just our domestic church plants, right? Like, we've now planted 6 churches. And it's so funny. Like, I've had somebody even say to me, like, oh, you guys are just kind of cranking them out like cogs in a wheel. I'm like, whoa, cogs in a wheel. I'm like, go through the names of every single one of these guys that have gone up. It's years of knowing them, years of elder development. Me even personally, discipling many of them. I mean, the last one that went out from Mercy Hill, for our church plant, I mean, dude, it's a 10-year deal. Meet him as a college student on a campus. So this idea of shortcuts is a straw man for some churches, like a Mercy Hill, that just, they're high, they're high growth. That means they're shortcut. When it comes to our sending process, there's no shortcut. And one of the reasons why, and I want you to speak to this, is because we have seen full in the face the type of warfare that these people are going to face. And I just love for you to, when we say, hey man, it's a 2-year process before you even get to the IMB, not the application, but I'm saying get to the, right, training. Why do we take it that seriously? Part of the reason is because we know how hard it's going to be. What are 2 or 3 things that you know personally, because you've been on the field, that you're like, hey, they need that training because this.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, our goal too is for someone not to go to the field and spend 2 years. Like, we want to see people go for 15. We want to see people go for their lives, because, right, most research, says that you kind of, with a new language, new culture, new everything, like, you don't hit the ground until, really feel comfortable until like year 7. So that would be like a third term, people coming back for that. So that's part of it. Like, we want to, it just takes so long to get through our process, and constantly have to stack yeses through the process to get through it.
That's right.
But it is when you get to the field, like, your whole world is flipped upside down. We felt that, like, we went right in the middle of COVID. We get thrown in a hotel for 68 days. We got 2 little boys, literally break everything in the place. They're pulling things down off shelves. We got things,
they take after you.
Oh yeah, for sure. But everything's flipped upside down. You can't get money out of the ATM. You need this money to pay rent, stuff like that. It's just constantly coming up. You gotta be adaptable. You gotta be flexible. You've got to be able to, really see culture through how people, in my world, the Muslim world, like how does the Muslim world view, just religion, and like at the bedrock, like what are they building their lives upon? So really studying that, and we just want to be students of the culture. You're learning a language. I always say with language, you can spend 2 hours with language, like mental space, it's really 4. You can double that, so you just think about like the mental capacity you have just to get the language, and work at it for a year. And really you work at it for a year and you're speaking like a 7-year-old, so we want to communicate. We call it gospel fluency. So we want to communicate where, they can understand, we can get into the depths of the gospel with them. So there's just so many things. And then not to talk, you're talking about family, your wife's struggling, I'm struggling with things, how to navigate that. Teaming is huge. I want to talk about the RMC here in a minute too. But teaming is so big. The statistics are pretty staggering. 65% of people, leave the field before their term is over, and it's because of team. You would think like culture would get them, or like just, stuff back in the States going awry, but it's teaming. It's their own people on the field. So we got to navigate those relationships. When I sit down with people, I often say, like, teaming in a sense is like that first year of marriage. Like, you're so close, you're learning everybody, but at the same time, there's going to be tension. There's going to be conflict. And you got to learn how to navigate that in a God-honoring way.
Right, move through it.
And move through it. And ultimately, we say it all the time on our team, like tension in the RMC, tension on our teams, now just creates an avenue for victory, an avenue for growth, instead of seeing that as like, hey, we're going to get apathetic towards this team and we're going to ride, we want to grow in that. And, our pipeline just does that in such a major way. But we want to send well-equipped workers out that are ready to hit the ground running when they hit the field. They know it's going to be hard. We talk about that a lot. But we talk a ton about gospel grit. So we want gospel grit when we hit the field.
So it's not just about getting anybody to the field.
That's right.
And we need resilient, courageous, willing to be flexible enough to work through issues, mentally focused, deeply spiritual, in tune with the Lord. It's not just throw them out there. Mm-hmm. Can't be. I've heard it said, I've never done what you guys did. My plan, our plan, me and Anna's plan was to spend 30 years at Mercy Hill and then go to the mission field for 2 terms. That was kind of been our plan. Faith Ann, our youngest daughter, our little chosen baby, I don't know how that's going to all work out now, but which is totally fine. But I read bios all the time. I talk to missionaries. I obviously live vicariously a little bit through some of what you guys do because I'm so intrigued by it. I don't know that I'd have the grit for it. I hope I would, but I really don't know. But I've heard people say it's like you go back to being a baby. When you move to a context like that I've heard 2 things. Number 1, it's like you're a baby again because you can't even talk. Mm-hmm. And then number 2, you just stepped into an absolute alien. You might as well have gone to Mars. It's that different. Talk about that. Dude, you guys it was 127 degrees. You couldn't even go outside half the year. Just talk about some of the alien environment, the baby stuff. Like, we need resilient people and we got to build them. They're not just born.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up on a farm. So I'm like, I know hot. I did not know hot. I got there and, we arrived in January. So it was the winter there. Winter there's, 80 degrees, it's like Hawaii, beautiful. Now we get to March and it's like, I've never felt anything like this before. Not only, are we talking about 115 degrees outside, we're talking about, 100% humidity, heat index is, I've got pictures on my phone, heat index is like 138, and
how did it compare to Thailand? We were in Thailand.
Much hotter.
It was
much hotter. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, for sure. It was, and you know this about me, sweating comes very freely to me. So like I'm being serious here. Like I'm carrying 4 shirts around with me in the city every single day.
Wow.
Because I get my car, company cars are not great. So the AC could knock off at any point. And you're sitting in a car. I remember specifically, we had our 3rd kid on the field, little baby Ridge. And, we had a 4-hour drive to Dubai. He's like 6 weeks old. So we're going up there for a big, cluster meeting, and we're so excited. We get in the car, AC knocks out. Every time we put the windows down, he cries. Oh. So 4 hours of that, and you're going over there, and it's just like, this is miserable, But at the same time, it's like, there's just such a joy to do what we get to do, So we're sitting there. I'm, shirt off, driving through, the desert in the UAE.
Did you take any pictures of that?
No, probably nobody wants to see that. But anyway, and it's frustrating. It's miserable. Yeah. We're looking at each other, like, hey, this is just part of it. It's, I was talking to one of our units this week, and he's talking about like going out to the villages and doing the same thing, just sweating like crazy. And we just got to this is so incredible though. We're taking, it's hot. Yeah, there's so many other things, but we're taking the gospel to people who have never heard it before. And like what, we'll take it, and things also like you got to lose all the pride. We talk about this a lot just in our pipeline training and everything. Like the pride has to be lost because you feel like a baby. You're going in situations, and the one thing that, I encourage our units to do, I had to be encouraged to do this as well. Like you speak the language you got when you got it. you know, so obviously you're going to grow in that. You're in classes, but you got to go for it. And a lot of times going for it, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And sitting around a group of, you know, 60-year-old Muslim men and being okay with going for it and falling on your face, it's hard, but that's what it takes to learn the language, learn the culture. And honestly, like, it creates some of that, like, hey, this dude's just a human, you know, like that relational building. And they'll joke on you for the next 2 years about it, but you know, this stuff's good. But yeah, I feel like you just got to embrace the culture. You got to have that grit, you know, and you just got to kind of attack every day, knowing it is brick by brick in language learning, in culture. But you got to be adaptable.